Hello, sewing people of the internet. I'm getting ready to go on a 3-night trip, and I'm going to use my tutorial backpack as my one and only piece of luggage. To make that work more efficiently, I wanted some packing cubes, and of course that means I have to make them. So in this video I'm going to show you how to make a packing cube. I made several different sizes. I'm just going to show you how to make one size, but it's easy to figure out how to make multiple sizes if you want. These are specifically designed to fit exactly into my backpack, so you might want to think about what you're packing your packing cubes in so that you make them fit the bag that they're going in. Let's get started. So the interior dimensions of my bag allow for an about 11-inch wide by 5-inch deep packing cube to fit in. There's a little bit of room, especially on the front and back, if I need to squeeze something else in. But I also wanted to allow for the cubes themselves to be stuffed and get a little bit bigger than those dimensions. So that's the dimensions I'm starting with, is 11 inches wide, 5 inches deep. And I just made a template on a piece of a file folder so that I could get repeatable results since I'm making multiples of these. I learned a couple of things in this process. I didn't really think about it, but I don't think I've ever sewn something exactly like this where the zipper is sewn directly to a panel as opposed to being part of a zipper plaque. When I made this first cube, I didn't round off the corners. And I also sewed the panel a little bit closer to the zipper coil, using up more of the zipper tape. And after experimenting, I found that by rounding the corners and sewing a little bit farther from the teeth, I got a better result, and it looks a little bit nicer. I don't even know if you can tell. You can kind of see how this is bunched up over here. So for the final design, I've rounded off the corners. You can just improvise something to round the corners, whatever you have laying around. In order to get the diameter of this shape, there's probably a way to do it mathematically, but I went to a terrible high school, so I just took a flexible tape measure. I just clipped it with binder clips all the way around until it came around to meet again, and took note of that measurement, and for mine that worked out to be 28 inches. And I've also noted on my template, thanks buddy, I also made a note on my template that the space between the ends of the zippers is 8 inches. And that gives me a nice wide opening. I'm using 400 denier pack cloth for my packing cubes. You could use basically anything. Maybe an ultralight material would be nice to make a lighter cube. I'm not really worried about weight for this particular application. And I just happen to have a lot of 400 denier pack cloth laying around, so that's what I'm using. So this template I made represents the top and bottom panels of the packing cube, so I'll need to cut out 2 of these. So again, referring to my notes that I made on the template, I need a 20-inch length of zipper, and I need to cut the connector for the zipper that's 8 inches that I mentioned earlier. That connector needs to be as wide as the zipper. I'm using number 8 YKK continuous coil zipper, and that's 1 1/4 inches wide. So I need an 8-inch by 1 1/4 inch piece, and that's without seam allowance. So I'm going to add an inch for seam allowance, so 1/2 inch on each side. So I need a 9-inch by 1 1/4 inch piece. So now I have all the pieces cut out. I've got the top, bottom, the zipper, and the connector for the zipper, and the gusset. I cut the gusset at 28.5 inches, and I'm going to sew a small French seam to conceal the raw edges of the gusset. I'll show you that in a minute. First I want to put on my zipper slider because I forget that just about every time. To make the connector panel for the zipper, I'm going to use some double-sided tape. I'm going to stick a piece on the right side of the fabric, right at the very end, and then I'll fold that over and then fold it again. And that'll adhere that fold down and that conceals the raw edge of the fabric and gives me a nice finished edge that I can sew to the zipper. I'll do the same thing on the other end. I'm also going to singe the ends of the zipper just to keep those from fraying. So now the zipper and the zipper connector are ready to go together. Again, the measurements I'm giving are for the packing cube that I'm making specifically for my backpack. So, you may use different measurements, but just to be clear, the total circumference that I'm trying to achieve is 28 inches, which means I need a 20-inch zipper and an 8-inch filler panel, or connector panel, whatever you want to call it. But I cut my zipper at 21 inches, and I cut my connector panel at 8.5 inches. I've taken away a 1/2 inch by the fold I did on each end of the panel, and I'm going to sew it a 1/2 inch from the end on either side, and that will give me the correct 28 inches. Next, I want to sew the zipper assembly to the top panel, and when you do this, you want to pay attention to put the zipper on in the correct orientation for how you want your zipper to open. So for example, if you want your zipper on the right side of the bag, make sure you put it in the right orientation. You could also put 2 sliders on, and then it doesn't matter. I'm basting my zipper assembly onto the top panel with these little clips. You could also use office binder clips, or you could use pins, whatever you like. I think it's a great idea to temporarily attach or baste these 2 assemblies together, because you do want the zipper to be centered on this panel. If the zipper assembly isn't centered properly, then your bag can look very lopsided when it's all sewn together. I also find that it's easier to manipulate the zipper if it's zipped open, so you don't have to fight with both sides of it. To make my gusset, I'm going to take the gusset panel and sew it right sides together to enclose the piece. I'm going to sew a little less than 1/4 inch in. Now I'm going to flip this piece inside out and sew over that seam to enclose the raw edge. This time I'll go just a little bit more than 1/4 inch. And at this point, you could either sew the gusset to the bottom panel and then sew that assembly to the zipper and top panel assembly, or you can do as I'm going to do and just go ahead and sew it to the zipper, the other side of the zipper first, and then sew the bottom panel on last. The last thing I need to do to complete this packing cube is to apply an edge binding to cover the raw edge on all of the seams. So 3 seams between the top panel and the zipper, the gusset and the zipper, and the gusset and the bottom panel. I've glossed over binding quite a bit on this channel because frankly it's kind of challenging to do well, especially with a home machine on some of the projects that I've done some very thick backpacks and stuff, and it's just challenging to do, but this is a good project for doing binding. The products I'm using to bind the seams on these packing cubes are all 1 inch, and I'm using a 1 inch swing away binder that I got from Sailrite. Binding can be a deep subject, so I'm not going to go into it in any great detail, but I did want to show you one thing that I found today at my local fabric store that's turned out to be pretty beneficial to use. I'll be with you in a minute. So in the past I've used 1 inch mil-spec 5038, I think it is, grosgrain with some good results, but I didn't have enough of a color that I wanted to use on these packing cubes, so I just went to my local fabric store to get some more. Well, for some reason they never have, or don't seem to carry grosgrain in 1 inch. It's always like 7/8 of an inch or 3/4 of an inch or something, and it needs to be the right size for the binder attachment that you have. In my case, I have a 1 inch binder. But what they did have was this elastic, and it's It's marked as 1-inch fold over elastic. There's a crease in the middle for it to fold. And I remember it having had a bag that was a factory made bag that I had of some sort that had elastic binding, and I thought it looked really nice, so I thought I'd try it and see how it worked on this project. Let's see how it does. So I think that actually looks really good and was quite easy to apply. It is quite expensive though, so but you might want to give it a try. So that's how I made my packing cubes to travel with. I'm actually back from the trip and these things worked really, really great. If you haven't tried using packing cubes when you travel, they really are helpful. I'm actually using this one now in my everyday carry bag to carry computer, charger, and cables and stuff like that. So, you know, if you don't need a packing cube for travel, this still might be a good project to try. I hope you like this video. If you have any questions or comments, post them in the comments section below. As always, clicking like really helps me out. There's a Teespring shelf or a link in the description if you want to buy some cool t-shirts or coffee mugs to help support what I'm doing. I really appreciate you being part of my channel. Thanks for watching. Right?